ESPN Seth Wickersham dropped an absolute bombshell of an article that did a deep dive into Sean Payton, who he is as a coach and away from the team as well. But it included a lot of really juicy notes and nuggets. Now, it's a very long article, so I'm not going to go through the entire thing with you guys, but I have some overarching takeaways and things like that. But maybe the highlight of it was something that's been all over the internet, and that is Sean Payton saying, "What?" to Russell Wilson. We're going to jump right into it here because it was pretty good. Not going to lie. I liked it. Here's what Sean Payton in ESPN Seth Wickersham article said. The Broncos invited a shock to the system when they hired Payton. There's palpable tension in the building. Payton doesn't care if he comes off like an asshole or if he is an asshole. Training camp practices have been long and physical. Staffers seem cautious around Payton, not wanting to say something that prompts an outburst. He told Wilson that to salvage his career, he needed to focus less on Russell Incorporated. Will you fucking stop kissing all the babies? He said, you're not running for public office. You know what? Someone had to say it. The Mr. Unlimited show needs a writer's strike. And writer's strike sucks. That one office season was a little bit shorter than the rest. But for the most part, I think we can all agree that Russell Wilson gets a lot of heat. He's a bit of a, cheese ball at times, a bit of corny every once in a while. The Mr. Unlimited, all that kind of stuff can, get old if you're not winning games. But if you are winning games, you just hop on the bandwagon and kind of ignore all the cheesy, corny stuff that Russ does. But last year, you couldn't really put up with it, right? You couldn't really put up with Russell Wilson having his whole entourage everywhere and then him not backing it up on the field with good quarterback play. So I know some people have very polarizing opinions on Russell Wilson with Denver right now, but I like this from Sean Payton. I like this approach of, hey, Russell, you're up here right now. You didn't play anywhere close to up here. We got to bring you down a little bit, right? We got to take away all these extra benefits you're getting and being basically a glorified coach as a player. No. That stuff stops now. The Russell Wilson show, the Mr. Unlimited show, it needs to go on pause because we got to start winning football games first. And we're not going to put our, not that Russ is putting himself ahead of the team. He's an ultimate team guy. Everyone raves about him and his work ethic and all that stuff. But there needs to be a knockdown a little bit after last year. Now, I thought this tweet from Ryan Clark was really interesting. Bruh, this Sean Payton and Russell Wilson news is crazy. Dude is going all the way opposite of how anyone has treated Russ or even thought about him. If it works, he's a genius. And if it doesn't, well, never mind. It almost seems like he hopes it doesn't. I don't like that last part. One, for my own selfish reasons, I don't want to believe that the coach of this team wants the quarterback to fail. That's not going to last very long, and that's not going to produce many wins. But the big question I still have is when Sean Payton was offered this job by the Walton Penner Group, right? Was the job's number one task to fix Russell Wilson? Was that what ownership was looking for? Is which candidate can fix Russell Wilson? Or was it, let's find the best head coach possible, and if they don't mesh super well with Russell Wilson, that's okay because there is an under-the-table understanding and agreement that their success and their longevity with the team is not tied to Russell Wilson, right? They're not going to go down with Russ if he does not have a bounce-back season. That is something I still continue to wonder. Is Sean Payton here because he told the ownership group, I'm the man that can fix Russell Wilson? Or is he here because he's the best candidate for the job? He's a potential future Hall of Fame NFL head coach, and his success is not tied to whether or not he can resurrect Russell Wilson, right? Meaning the ownership group is not going to grade him based on how Russell Wilson performs. That is still a question I have, and we won't know the answer for a few years, depending on how long Russell Wilson is here. And Russ is out soon, and Sean Payton is still here. I think we know what the requirements were when the ownership group was doing a head coaching search. But let me know, will Sean Payton and Russell Wilson work well together? Yes or no? Give me your best stab at this one down in the comment section below. It's the pinned comment, so scroll on down, type Y for yes or type N for no. Now, aside from that absolute bombshell of a quote he gave to Russell Wilson, Sean Payton is a little little bit paranoid. A lot of this article focused on his time in New Orleans. It's a very long article. I recommend you go read it yourself. I thought it was very insightful. But he definitely talked a lot about his time in New Orleans, of course, and his overall belief that the league is just out to get him. And this really all stems from Bountygate, right? Where Sean Payton got suspended for a year. Greg Williams was paying players to injure and hurt other players. And the league is still, holding a grudge against Sean Payton for that. And the referees, well, they are the enforcers for this grudge. Look at this part from the article. Before the Broncos hired Payton, we had last caught up in early 2022, just after the Saints had commissioned a study of penalties drawn by each NFL team over the previous 4 seasons. New Orleans ranked 30th, 31st, 32nd, and 32nd. Payton presented the penalty study to the league. There was no response. I think it starts with Roger, Payton says. I pray that the Broncos are now going to be the next victim of NFL against Sean Payton, where Nicole Roby-Coleman type calls happen in Denver now because the NFL has told the officials, we're still not over that Bountygate scandal and, well, not even scandal, just the entire thing around it. So you know what? Don't be afraid to throw an extra flag or two, or maybe swallow your whistle if it's a close call, because we have a bone to pick with Sean Payton. And Sean Payton in this article really came across as a super duper and fairly so paranoid guy that he feels the league is constantly out to get him. And as Bill Parcells told him, you got to avoid all the landmines. So here are my big takeaways from this article. Sean Payton is fairly so, by the way, because the horrible no call in New Orleans in the NFC divisional round or NFC championship game against the Rams, it still haunts him. Whole new culture in Denver, right? Last year, there were like field day games going on pretty much, and none of the starters played in the preseason, and they thought they could just waltz into the regular season and be excellent. Not the case this year. It is like, I'm talking high school football 2-a-days type of stuff right now. He's addicted to winning. Sean Payton, every single player and coach in the NFL are the most competitive guys on the face of the earth. But Sean Payton is in the upper brass of this competitive nature. The guy hangs out in Coeur d'Alene, Iowa every summer, casually with like Wayne Gretzky and others, and he plays golf with them. And the dude is just a competitor. He is still fantasizing about his next Super Bowl ring and hosting that Lombardi trophy. If you're looking for a guy that wants to win a Super Bowl, I don't know if anyone wants to win one more than Sean Payton. He is an absolute workaholic. There was a great story about when the Saints were in London one time. He was chatting with Bill Belichick, and Belichick's like, so when do you guys go out to London? And he's like, Bill, we're already in London. He's like, what? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Why are you still up? He's like, I'm watching film. The guy is a complete maniac, mad scientist when it comes to putting hours into the lab. And finally, he is obsessed with burying last year. He wants nothing to do with the 2022 Denver Broncos. He wants to completely sink last year, and he did so when he had a 2022 Ford Bronco drive off a cliff. And he played that video in front of the entire team, and he's like, that shit is done. It's over. It is behind us now. So all of this, to sum it up, kind of gives me Deion Sanders vibes, right? When Deion went to Colorado, like when he first got hired, and there was all those videos coming out of him meeting with the team and basically saying, like, if you're not with us, hop in the transfer portal because we are turning this boat around today. And a lot of people were skeptical about how this would work and whether or not it would pay off quickly. And we saw results immediately for Deion in Colorado, winning against the national runner-ups last year at their stadium, first game of the season. I think you're going to see that with Sean Payton. I think you're going to see a dramatic turnaround because there is a dramatic cultural turnaround right now in Denver. And the losing is over with. And we saw that as Sean Payton was visibly frustrated after preseason losses when most other coaches don't really care, it looks like, on the sideline. Now, before we get to the first depth chart being dropped, I just want to give some shout outs to some recent subscribers we picked up here on the channel. Who is Miss Marie? I don't know, but welcome to the show. Kiki Review, Chica422, Timothy Mountcastle, and Leon BS. Shout out to all of you guys for subscribing to the channel. If you want to get a shout out on a future show, well, subscribe right now and we will get your name on screen at some point. Now, next up on the show, Denver dropped their first, I'll say, official depth chart going into week 1. So we're going to kind of run through some of the depth chart takeaways I've got, and there were a few surprises. And let's start with this one here. Marvin Mims is your starting kick/punt returner. So cornerback Tremont Smith was kept on the roster because of his return abilities. And if he's not even going to be in the cornerback rotation and he's not going to be in the special teams rotation, what's he going to do on game day? Next one. This one is definitely a eye-popping one. Jonathan Cooper ahead of Frank Clark. Denver gave Frank Clark, what, a 5-year fully guaranteed contract? $5 million fully guaranteed contract, and he's not even starting for this team right now. You look at Denver's outside linebackers, Randy Gregory and Jonathan Cooper, former 7th-round pick out of Ohio State, are your two starting outside linebackers with Nick Bonito and Frank Clark serving as your primary backup. So definitely something I did not expect when Denver signed Frank Clark, for him to be backing up Jonathan Cooper. I wonder if he would have signed with the Broncos if he knew he was going to be a backup. But clearly Sean Payton is giving an instance here of he is not going to just let the big name players go on the field if someone else is doing a better job at it. We see once again an Kareem Jackson or Caden Stearns starting at safety alongside Justin Simmons. For now, I'm just going to call my shot and say Kareem Jackson is this team's starting safety. He will be out there with Justin Simmons. That's just my prediction. Here's the Broncos safety room. It's got that so it could be Caden Stearns. I ultimately think it'll be Kareem Jackson for week 1, but maybe you see a mid-season change if Denver starts to like what they see out of the young guy named Caden Stearns. And then the final note I've got from the first depth chart, tight end 1 is not Greg Dulcich. It is Adam Trautman, former, I think, 3rd-round pick out of Dayton, Ohio. Go Flyers. And he was with Sean Payton in New Orleans. Denver traded for him during the draft. And Adam Trautman finds himself ahead of Greg Dulcich on the depth chart right now. I know a lot of people were all over a Greg Dulcich breakout year, and I don't want to be the I told you so guy because I'd love to see that happen. But I did warn you, I don't think you're going to see a big year out of Greg Dulcich like everyone is just assuming. Now, Adam Trautman in his career has never really been much of a receiving threat. 207 yards last year. I'm pretty sure Greg Dulcich had that in fewer games. So I'm not quite sure what Sean Payton's thinking is, but maybe he thinks that Trautman has to be unlocked, and with him in Denver, he can do that. So definitely something to watch for in the tight end room. To wrap up the show, let me know who you got in this one, Denver or Las Vegas. Give me your honest opinion down in the comment section below. I've got the Broncos winning. I've got the Broncos covering in this game, and they pick up their first win against the Raiders since they moved to Las Vegas, which is very sad to say, but that is the fact. Summer hot takes here. It is 89 degrees. We get a hot sand take, so not one of my spiciest takes in the cabinet, but still a pretty good hot sand take, and that is I think Denver starts the season off 3-1. They pick up wins against the Raiders, Commanders, and I'll say Dolphins. And that would be a 3-0 start. Maybe they lose to the Dolphins, but beat the Bears in week 4, all going into week 5 against the Jets at home. But I think Denver can take care of business at home against Raiders and Commanders in the first 2 weeks, and then split their next 2 road games between Miami and Chicago.